Which one is you trying to get on?
Mm, can't see. I'm not seeing for a reason. No, why are these still? It's there. Hey, see, I got live
It's
camera.
black.
Yeah, it's black
Okay,
for a
it says
reason.
trans PM music.
Black for a reason. Settings. 1 second.
What
Stream
about your auto your what you call that thing?
video.
What do you use? The Bible study one? Like which page? Which one of those things?
See, I don't haven't used this one in a while, so that's why I'm like, okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna
Right.
get it in a second. Yeah. No, no, no. Looking Dave. It was gonna be this one.
Okay, so video capture.
Says video capture is on. Okay.
Wait,
Yes.
test it. Do FaceTime just to see if it's on. Okay, so
Okay.
that works.
It works.
Okay,
But
say okay.
I need to. Yeah.
There
Boom.
it goes. See, just gotta play with it.
All right.
See, I told you I learned how to do it.
Okay. You know how to do the rest from here. Stop streaming. Is it streaming to my page now?
See if you can transition them over there.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Let's
Now you
exit.
gotta go back to the other page to your
No,
restream.
no. Let's go back out to the restream. Am I live? Do you want Facebook view? Yes. Yes.
You got a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, you see, I was about to touch it again.
Update titles. You know the rest of the update
Wait.
titles?
So you said interfaith what?
Interfaith, Jews and the Jews and the day down. Interfaith, Jews and blacks from Dr.Dave.
Yeah. Okay, how come it's not letting me update? Oh no, you're live. You know you're live?
Yes, it's live. But nobody should be hearing. I know.
Oh,
It's mine.
okay. Whew,
As
made me
long as
nervous.
it's silence. No, it's live. No, it's fine.
No, I know.
This is now. Okay. Right. But nobody should be hearing us. Yeah, we're about to get started. Okay, can you send me the links of your live?
Okay, but hold up. How come I cannot? How come your channel is not up? I mean, your title is not updating when I'm clicking on it. See if you can click it. When I click stuff,
No, don't worry
oh,
about
it's
it.
not clicking. Okay.
No. Because I think I updated it on Facebook. Hold on.
It's on your Facebook, so it should be on your Facebook to share it.
Okay. I'm trying to find it.
That is so weird. That
Give me the link.
destinations.
Give me the link.
Okay, I don't see your link.
You see a link?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I know how to get it. Copy link.
You see it? Yes. Oh, we didn't turn them on. Oh, my bad, I didn't turn them on. Right.
I just want to. Yeah, there's a lag. You don't hear me over here? Make sure I'm on.
Now yours is different because yours is on this phone thing.
Here,
Can you move this stuff
everything-
around?
Everything is going through. What do you need?
That's the one that you kept going in, right? This one right there?
Testing. Yes.
For me to go back?
This is what you need to go.
Oh,
OBS.
okay, so I'll go to OBS.
Testing. Testing. Okay, you're good.
Like, you're not muted, you know.
No, that's fine.
Fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for something else. We're about to get started already in line. You go to my page, which is Dave page, if you get a substitute.
What does he want?
We only. Where you from? Let's go around and say who you are, and let's get started.
Is it light enough?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria Allen. I am the wife of Dr. Pastor Allen. I'm also a high school guidance counselor for 20 plus years. Currently, I serve the students at ATEC High School in the Williamsburg Midpoint section.
Hi, Gilman Rose. I am Reverend Allen's walk-in partner. We literally changed it over this day. We're walking the park. I live in Leesville. This is one of the best places. I think that historically speaking, people realize the history of Leesville. Leesville is not in Providence. And that is very important to understand the history of Leesville. Leesville was again one of the first free slaves in America. It was right there. This next was right there. Is Leesville. Also, I think that someone brought it over. Yeah, so it's Leesville something. But in this area, it's a very historic place. And this church is in Leesville. It's a historic King church. So Harry was free slaves before the church. This particular area. So you are in Leesville, then I'm in Providence with this one too. When we're talking about Black history, we should have where we at least are position in the right location. You are in Weeksville, and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Edward Payne. I'm the pastor in Southeast Flatbush, the pastor of the Tabernacle. Here in 8 years with leadership. Brooklyn, a guy like Roman Brooklyn, like a guy like Roman, with different Manhattan. My roots are actually 4 miles away, and the guy grew up Far Rockaway, and his whole childhood in that area. And I'm not from anywhere around California. But when we got here, my dad was like, "Oh, wait." He said, "I spent my lifetime in New York. Why are you going back to it?" But this is, this, you know, somewhere, so it's a little bit of a, we're also very into the area, and we're going to kind of.
Good afternoon, my name is Jeannie Mitchell. I am a tenant activist, a community advocate, and a community leader. I do work and volunteer with various organizations in the Crown Heights area, and now we are expanding out to so thank you for today. I appreciate that. My advocacy work is usually more focused on housing and the laws that are keeping our tenants out of housing and displacement. And we know with all the changes that are happening in these neighborhoods and in these areas and by developers, the focus is to not allow tenants and residents who have been here for a long-term basis to be further displaced. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invite, and I hope that you did it.
Rabbi Bob Kaplan, I'm the executive director of something called the Center for Secure Society at the Relations Council. Born and raised in Brooklyn. I would say that just leaving Brooklyn was really hard. Grew up not far from here, but in East Boston. Went to Brooklyn High School. My buddy in Brooklyn. And we can get briefly back to Brooklyn, particularly here in Eastville.
All right. So we have all the panelists, and the rest is the viewing audience. And, no, that's fine. No, well, the rest is going to understand objections and experiences of Crown Heights. So that's for everybody, I'm Dr. Dave, senior pastor of the Tabernacle and founder of Epic Village. This afternoon, what we're looking to do is to have a great discussion on the anti-Semitism, the relationship between Blacks and Jews, how we can bridge the relationship, how to make even a better relationship from what we're seeing, the relationship between Blacks and Brown. Crown Heights is one of the most interesting communities in Brooklyn, if not the most interesting communities. This year we celebrate, well, not celebrate, this year we're looking back at the last 30 years of the relationship between Blacks and Brown, Blacks and Jews, in the sense of the last riots that happened. No one individual that can speak to this is Rabbi Bob Kaplan, and the others who are watching this afternoon. And so what we've seen lately on the news with what's happening with Kanye West, what's happening with Kyrie Irving, what we see now is the heightened anti-Semitism. And this is what I was reading in the New York Times. It says more than ever, anti-Semitism is up. And so what we want to do is understand why it's up. What we want to do is how can we, between who is the antagonist? Is it the Blacks? Is it others? And so we want to understand how do we bridge these relationships. So the first thing I want to ask is why, and anyone can jump in, we'll need someone to pass the mic if one's available. But let's start with the panelists. Why do you think anti-Semitism is up? Why do you think it's up? I think that's a great question we need to answer. So let's pass it. All right.
I think anti-Semitism is on the rise due to the exposed economic disparities in our community as a result. I think that the economic disparities have always been present, but it was highlighted because of the pandemic. I think we just believe that the Jewish community are organized in a way that creates economic leverage on their part and leaves Black and brown people with a sense that you are in a position of leadership because of your togetherness, and that we now have to kind of get in where we fit in terms of we own the homes in our communities, we own a lot of the businesses in our communities, especially businesses that dealing with individuals trying to secure housing. A lot of it is tied to the fact that it's almost like a master-slave relationship being replayed out time and time again, where we have to grow within our communities, but we are not the leaders in our communities, we're not the owners of them. So there's a system of anger, there's a system of jealousy, there's a system of why they're not us, right? And I think there really is someone to blame. And because the organization within the Jewish community, because we do move as one, because we realize that there are strengths in numbers, we want to replicate that, but we've been unsuccessful so far, which is a whole other panel discussion on why we haven't been successful. But we want what we have. The good things that we have, the good things that we bring to the table. And when you see something in the distance and, you know, you can touch it, almost touch it, can't quite get it, it creates a sense of freedom. That's why I feel that.
Come on, let's keep this live. Come on, yes. That's right.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been working on a brand, Asian university. The first time I tried to do was 2008. And then I went to France, Poland. Of course, I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. I'm going to do black, something black, but so I think when you stop from what I say is that I've always said this way every discussion, every program on to people from the crime will people from the crime will win. The majority of crime, for all the crime that's committed in New York City and in Colorado, committed not only by people who do it. So if you have a community that is Jewish, Black, crimes are going to be committed by the people who live there. If you go into certain places, I don't subscribe to the fact because people who do crime are living. If you have 1% of Black people living in Alaska, the majority people who live just like one another. So people commit crime are living. That's number one. Number two, every category of hate is up. And African American or Black hate are more than a face of stigma based on a real event. Story that was done after we had people recognize that. So for me, as a Black man from a Caribbean, from a Black son who lives in school, who walked through Crown Heights to get to school, the school is in Crown Heights. It's very important for us to understand that Black people on the whole, we are not violent. So the introduction of the who has to be put into context as to the where. The why, we can go on this one, but the who and the where needs to be looked at from a very specific place. Because even though we had the knockouts, we had a phenomenon of knockouts, and we have to really talk to young kids in California. Yeah, so what was it? Was it a situation where it was copycatted? Or was it a situation where people actually have a better pay to operate the person that they expect? So how do you have two groups of people who live in the very same building next to each other and feel that they actually innately hate one another? That is very good. Because African Americans are here, if you look at it even from the 60s, which community always lived alongside the black community. The black community is always open in terms of allowing people to come into a community. You drive off the road, and on every corner store, there is someone who owns um, a bodega that is not black, and we passionate. Nail salons, and we passionate. The restaurants and the fast food joints, we passionate. And there is no issues with when we talk about even the black economics of power. So we have to also understand that we have to tread very cautiously because crime is significant. Now, overall anti-Semitism in the world, I'm really talking about Brooklyn, I'm talking about New York City and where we were. Stuff that is happening in Ohio, Chicago, the white supremacists. These are just, folks who continue to be the same people that hate a black beloved church that is praying on a Wednesday night that someone can come in and shoot and kill that those individuals. The same sort of people who will say that we shall not, we don't want the police to be around us. We will be faced with you. These are the same sort of people. I mean, when you look at the national anti-Semitism, when you look at the people who taking guns and killing large masses of people, it's the who. But in terms of that we can discuss, but when it comes to Fahrenheit, New York City, really and truly we live on top of one another. And so we deal with gun violence and the people who's killing one another look just like the same people. So crime is spilling over to one another. So there's a lot to say. And I just pray that those of us who are leaders can speak to the issues so we can get to a place where we can really see what is someone doing.
So I'm real glad that you're here today. To address the question, I'm glad that Florida really had a local. We're bringing out. We are in a state where hate as both a political and and there are folks that have just made it accepted. And this is not something that they're a little bit what the past was saying. It's not something that is exclusively or 2%. It is become an American thing because people have walked into, as we pointed out, Mother Church in Charleston. People walked into the supermarket in Buffalo. People walked into the Greek prayer synagogue in Pittsburgh. It's become a tool, an acceptable thing to solve problems with the done. Whether it's what's happening locally with the kind of issues you're dealing with on a daily basis in the God Squad, but it's national. It's not just local. It's not just here. It's local. What I don't want it to send into is making it. I think that's a dangerous path to go down. I think that perhaps in Crown Heights, where there's so much proximity, it becomes that. Because people are just proximate to each other, and as you pointed out, people see what one person has, what another person doesn't have, but they also don't see what's going on in people's lives. They don't see the consistency of gun violence or the crime that the past was referring to. And this has been, according to studies that have been done, it's been a national trend that's been going on for years. That there's been more and more hate, more and more. But in the past decade or so, it's become rapid. To the point where, you're right, where the Jewish community has learned that we report what's happening. We know, right after 9/11, a good friend of ours, Mohammed Razi, did an informal study in Flatbush of attacks on Muslims that they didn't want to report for lots of different reasons. One was Homeland Security was come down on their neck, or reported, or they felt that, afraid to report. Hundreds of incidents against Muslims that never made it into the data for the statistics. Hundreds of, I had one black lawyer friend of mine, leader, said, how come you guys don't report? I was doing that because one of the man that people heard. And what the person said to me was so profound and where I report every indignity that happens to me from the minute I wake up in the morning to the minute I go to sleep at night. And who do I report it to? Who do I report it to? The police. Now, if you're Jewish, generally, if you see a cop car parked in front of your synagogue, you go like, okay, man, we're safe. If you're not Jewish and then you're in some other communities and see a cop car parked in front of your house of worship, you're not exactly feeling safe. We have to come to grips with these problems that have been baked into American society. And then we have to be the leaders that are going to get to the place where, I'm not being Pollyanna, I know that these things are. I don't think anti-Semitism is leaving, I don't think racism is leaving, I don't think all that stuff is leaving. We just got to push it back and say that it's just not acceptable in our society. And when the leader or someone who calls himself a leader uses it, whether they're an economic leader, they're a political leader, they're a thought leader, or whatever, they're using it as a tool, then you got to call it out and say it's just not acceptable. You really have to understand that there are a lot of people who are looking for answers, went there to go before, or what. Why are we in the shape that we're in? And often we don't like to look at ourselves. The idea of scapegoat certainly comes out of, the Bible. We know the theory of scapegoat. So we look outside ourselves and say, no, that has to be them. That has to be they are doing it to us. Well, we need to figure out an answer where we are listening to one another and we are dealing with the issues that are driving us to say it.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, nothing is new under the sun. It all appears to be new, but it isn't new. What's new is to hear. What's new is the circumstance. What's new is how we handle things. And for me, I am grateful for this open discussion because this is the how. We don't know the why. The why is the reason. And we have to figure out how do we come together. We are having an uncomfortable conversation, but we're going to be comfortable to trust one another that we will make a difference in our community. I cannot point my finger at my neighbor across the street because he or she is Jewish. They cannot point the finger at me because I am an African Latino woman. I grew up in Panama, came to New York in 1967. I did not know what faith was. I did not know what black and white issues were. I did not grow up with that. It is not what I grew up with in my household. I grew up loving because I have people that look like me. They simply they look like me. Because they're all different colors. Look around. With different shades of skin complexion. That's all it really is. But if I can sit down and really look at you in your eyes and say, you are a human being just like me, just from different on the outside, but on the inside, we're all the same. Nothing is new under the sun. So, Michael Jackson sang a song, I'm looking at the man in the mirror. I have to look at myself and see what am I doing different. In my community where I live, there is a population of people moving in, which is a mixed population, from black and white couples to even Asians. We have French, we have Jewish, we have a lot of Caribbean. So things are changing before our eyes, but I noticed that the black community within the same right there, hey, how you doing? Hi, how are you? But we don't talk to our Jewish people. brothers and sisters, and I do. And they talk to me, so I tell them, I say, well, you've got to reach out and touch. You've got to learn, because unless I get to know you, you will never understand me. And we may not ever understand each other, but we've got to get to the point of trust. Trust is one of the key issues for me, because we've got to learn to trust one another. So how does trust look? It starts with me. That if I show you that you can trust me, then maybe you'll understand me at some point.
That's done.
Let me get a little bit first, right? That's what you need to do.
It's a tough conversation. Part of it is because I can't arrogate myself to say that I understand the solution.
Okay.
And part of it is I think even in the conversation, is sort of exposing how difficult it is.
All right. Fine.
So,
Where's properties at?
I think,
Oh, I see it. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not really sure how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I sort of briefly how to capture
USP.
the poison that's affected us, which
I've seen
leads
it
to become
everywhere.
something to our blame. And I know that it's natural.
All we see it says,
Assumptions about each
it
other
always says like,
based on the behavior
chapter,
of other people that we
and
have,
revolution.
we were talking about.
Um,
What's interesting to me, as you said though, is like you move as one. I think every you in the room sort of like that is not
multitask. Yeah.
generally a description
You know
of
why?
how
Because
the
he's
community interacts with each other.
he changed the laptop.
And
All right. Okay.
yeah,
I don't know where it is. Is that one? Yes.
this is
All right, great. Let me see if I can find it. So can I just type in task again? Let me see. It's, he should have it on his. I don't even see it on his. See, that's what happens when you change the laptop. No. Okay, because now it just says task EMDR, code of position. I don't know which one it is.
You're talking about belong to a section of the Jewish community. And by the way, I don't even know if it's indicative of that community. Because the
It
community
doesn't. So how does he do his?
the highest poverty rates in the country, although they do it on, it's a very complicated reason why they have it. It's has to do with religious ideology. You can't even point to one of those people and say, oh, they're
So
all.
how could I put task in one?
But I've never spoken to the person who belongs to that community in my life. So, yeah, it would be very, very difficult for those
I can't interrupt it in the middle of it.
that connection. And yet, I think it's really sweet thing. I want to tell stories. I'm going to tell stories. Part of it, the hard part is I also have some beautiful stories.
Where is it?
So, like, I think one of the difficulties of this conversation is it is natural to human being to give the painful more realistic.
It's gonna pick it up.
So, I mean, I can say to you, example, when I moved to New York in 2018, my son was 1 year old at the time, and now we're 2. I've had a lot of help in New York City in terms of on the bus with the kids. When I before I knew it, you couldn't bring the stroller on the bus, and so on and so forth. And what I'll tell you is that every hand has never reached out to me to help me when like the kids were about to fall or they were helping me. Yeah, right. And so, yeah, and so one of the things that so actually there's a culture of incredible respect. My wife was pregnant and she told me in DC, she said, "We know when you get up."
I have to not go speakers through.
Except for the black insurance. And she was so angry about it. She would see like these finance bros, you know, or the,
Yeah.
so I don't say this to reduce black culture to even a positive stereotype. I say this because I don't want to share the painful without sharing the way that actually I received a lot of help personally from members of the Black community. Like, I think my son would have fallen off the bus. The man grabbed him, and we just sort of exchanged nods with each other, one father to another. Anyway, the painful story is this: I got into a car altercation. The car altercation in Crown Heights happens a lot. People drive crazy here in Crown Heights. I don't know exactly what was going on. The guy really wanted to like sped by me and cut me off, and then he stopped in the street, and I sped by him. I was not acting my rabbi self moment. And then he pulled up to me and rolled down the windows and polite words, and sure that if he was going to drive fast, he should just drive well, which he did not appreciate. And then he said to me, you know, Hitler was right. And he was black. And one of the reasons I bring this up is because there has to be a way that I don't connect. But what was interesting to me, and this is to the rabbi's point, is how did a black man say to me that Hitler was right? We were all in the same boat, according to Hitler. And so what that means is that we have all been infected. What do you thought about this? We've been infected. And it's hard to get rid of the disease, you know. And by the way, do not think for a second my community is scot-free from the kind of hateful things that people say and do. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is that what do you do when things reach a level of absurdity? You know, and you know, we make assumptions about one another. Also, about walking around. That's to me. Because you're a fake Jew. I've been Jewish all my life. I had no idea it was fake until that moment. Anyway, I just walk. This happens, by the way. Crown Heights invisible as a Jew. And so people walk around. Fake Jews. And he says, what are your father's name? I said, my father's name is Solomon, which is, you might know, is Jewish. And he says, your father wasn't, excuse my language. I don't want to swear in the church. Because your father wasn't. Yeah. So, what I'll tell you is that I live a life that is often surrounded by the privilege of the whiteness of the family and habit. A privilege that I have taken much use of. And yet, because of my Jewishness, I know a kind of indignity, which, as I share with you, I can only imagine the moments of indignity that you experience that speak to me in the same way. This is what I was trying to teach about. In the pit, everybody is blind. They assume that what the people we run into are. Look, I'm not saying that, I'm sorry to speak this so loud, but it's really, I'm not saying that the tension between Jewish landlords and black tenants in Crown Heights isn't real. I know it is. I personally own not a single piece of property because I can't afford it. And so the question is not that how did that resolve my responsibility here, but I just feel confused a lot of the time. Because I know I'm connected to the people that you're talking about, but also disconnected. I know you're connected to the people I'm talking about, but disconnected. I don't know what the formula is. Put that out there. That's what I gotta say.
Just to repeat that. Yeah, so also to let me tell you, Rabbi, that you know, in the Black community, and I think we talk about behavioral wellness. So if I could get biblical and religious or biblical, you know, at the end of the day, Jesus was said that these conditions going to get worse. And so, as a faith leader, when I talk to my congregation, it's always preparing for end time. That's the power of end things. Right? You know, Jesus was saying that it's going to come a time when the world is going to cease from being, but before that time, things are going to happen. You're going to hear that there's going to be wars and rumors of war. You're going to hear that there will And then there's also something that we talk about in the New Testament is men are to continue to face. So evil will continue to this. However, it is our responsibility to be light in the gospel. So that same person who said it guilty will call me a son. Will call me the B word, will call me the N word.
Wait, hold on.
That's the nature of some of those individuals. Those individuals, there is nothing I can do to deal just with that overall. And I will love all that. Those are just who you face because of where you live and the condition of the world. However, what will be, and I probably will never address the this situation. I will just say one thing about all of this. It talks about slavery. The same way, I don't know the same way, but in light of how we talk about it is true. What was real? Atrocious on the Jewish people. Let's make that point clear. That's number one. Number two, a lot of effects as well happen with the slave trade and with slavery in America. So for Kanye, that's a different story. Someone else who is more politically astute could respond to him, but I want to say that the Holocaust is definitely did take place and it's true. Point blank. But to you, I was just saying is that that's what we have to face. And that's the price that we pay for living in a mixed community on the evil side of it, or the dark side of it. Because the first time that I was called a nigger in New York City was in Crown Heights by a Jewish young man. First time. I literally got out my car and I ran after him, and I was going to definitely put some licks on him, blows. But I didn't catch up to him, but I definitely was going to do that. But that was the first time that I was called. And what did I do? I was upset. I drove to Crown Heights and I went home to Weeksville. And I said, listen, it never changed my commitment to my mentor, Rabbi Bob Kaplan. It never changed my outlook of seeing a Jewish person. But I knew that what do? Do I turn that person, that young man, into every Jewish person? So I think that in these conversations, what I would say to all of us on the leadership level is that we just have to make sure that we hold everyone accountable for the words and the action, and make sure that we don't give anyone a pass. Whether it's anti-black hate, I want your community to stand up for me. And when it is anti-Semitism hate, just as you want me to come to your aid, I will come to your aid, but I also want you to come to my aid. When the world sees that, I think it will change the paradigm in terms of how we look. Because then when we come together and we support one another, that's the key. The key is not whether or not that we're going to stop every person from calling you fake Jew or calling me a sellout crony. The key is that we have to stand together, those of us who understand in terms of leadership, that I have to definitely defend your right. I have to defend your identity, defend your Jewishness, as you have to defend my blackness as well. And when we start doing it together, I think the evil will persist, because Jesus said that, right? But what I do know for sure, that the love that we have and the commitment that we have to one another, I think is what's going to save America. Yeah.
This is
But you can respond. No.
Actually, it was actually in response to you. I would love to share my experiences, etc. The thing that you said. First of all, Kanye West is very mentally unstable and ill. So I'm not even going to respond and talk about it. But something that you just said there, and I'm so glad that it came up. You said that it is each of our responsibilities to respond to the anti from the other. Something that the kids have raised me in the last couple of weeks, and for those of you who follow sports, LeBron James. Does anyone know where I'm going with this, right? Yes. Okay, thank you. And this is, I think, really important. And it also goes back to a little bit about what you're talking about in terms of uncomfortable conversation. So I'm going to fill you in a little bit here. Kyrie Irving, the hammer came down on him for what he did. LeBron James, I think Kenny Smith, am I getting the name Jerry Smith, I think.
Jerry Wright. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jerry
I don't
Jones.
follow sports, but
Jerry
I follow
Jones, the
this
owner
part.
of the Dallas. Yeah, Jerry Jones.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Jerry Jones.
Thank you. Jerry Jones, years ago in the 60s, is in an anti-segregation photo. He's a part of the mass and the mob that was a part of stopping black children from attending schools. In his defense, he said he was an onlooker. You can't be an onlooker. If you look at the photo, this is a riot. This was a riot. And LeBron James, and he was being interviewed, and he turned to the press and he said, you know, when the Kyrie Irving thing was happening, I couldn't get away from a question about him. Now, this Jerry Smith individual, Jones individual, has done this photo has come out, and not one reporter has dared to ask a question. Now, what the kid said to me, which was so interesting, he said, so Mimi, how am I supposed to stand up for anti-Semitism when Jewish people are not standing up for anti-blackness? And that is my question to this panel and to this room. I didn't know what to say because I felt it too in that moment. They explained to me, I was not very aware of any of this. And when they explained to me, and they said, but Twitter did not go on fire. Nobody's talking about canceling him. Nobody's doing this. Where is now the Jewish media that Kanye has referred to? Because it feels like that to the children. Because now we have a quietness that was not there before. So with the same passion that we fight anti-Semitism and we expect our neighbors to fight, we have to be ready to stand together and give it back, because that's the only way that we're going to start to feel like we're coming together and being cohesive. Because what this did is it just further divided us. In the children, with the people that I deal with, in their heads, it has now further divided us.
So let me respond to that a little bit, because so when I introduced myself, said I'm the executive director of something called the Center for Shared Society of the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York. That's a nice title, right? Let me tell you what that is. The JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, is the umbrella group for about 60 major Jewish organizations in the New York area. We are the official voice of the mainstream Jewish community in New York. I get to play a very important role in that community because I'm the voice that gives them a really hard time. I come in and I hear what you're saying here. And when Donald Trump can sit down with known racist, a known white supremacist, and then somebody who has spouted out known anti-Semitism and denied the Holocaust and says, well, they're nice to me, got to call him out. You got to say, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And when this other person, and I personally did not know this story, but now that I know this story,
I'm talking about
yeah.
This is the problem.
So, but no. It's there's just so much bandwidth in his brain sometimes for stories. So, but whenever I'm in a unique position where I can call out my own community, and that's my personal growth, by the way. And it goes back to, I think, something the pastor said before. We have to continue to grow as leaders. We have to continue to take on that personal responsibility and see the racism that is in us, or the anti-Semitism that's in us, or the anti-Asian stuff that's in us, or the hates that's in us, because I see it, and you referred to it before, Rabbi. You said, like, you weren't being a good rabbi at that moment. Well, sometimes we're not good rabbis, sometimes we're not good people, because we've been infected. And until we are aware of how deep that infection is, that how I feel when I'm walking down the street, and like I said, I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up in a city housing project. I grew up with everybody. I went to public school. I grew up with everybody, but I know that I wasn't aware of how deep an imprint racism has made in my life until very recently. And why I wasn't aware? Well, that's a whole long story. But I have to become aware. And when I become aware, I can do two things with it. I can say, oh, that's nice, I'm aware. That's a really good thing. I'm an aware person. Like, I'm woke. Or I can do something about it. Or I can become somebody who's going to step into positions that are going to make other people uncomfortable in my own community. And call them out and say, I'm sorry, you got to call this out. You got to take this on. This is a problem in our society, and we are responsible. We are responsible as whether an organization or this or that thing. And if you're only going to care about anti-Semitism, then we have a problem. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten myself in trouble in the past couple of weeks using that particular line. But I had to become aware, and I have to take on responsibility. And if I don't, if I can't take that on, I have no right having my job. I have no right having the position that I'm in, and I have no right facing my God and saying, you put me here, I got to be your partner in this fight.
Awesome. Can we get someone from the audience? Anyone?
Yeah.
The listening audience. Scott? Bye-bye, Scott. Okay.
I think that what David and I are trying to do is something modest, maybe too modest, but it's just that I've never seen it done before. And I want to bring it up. I think, Pastor Monrose, when you were sharing, it reminded me of like why we sort of came here today, or what it is. Gadol avoni min soa, my sins, the sins of my family are greater than that I can bear. And what I would say is that I see no dearth. I see the pain that the communities who are sitting in this room have experienced seems to have no bottom to it. And we could be here 24 hours a day, and I don't know that we would reach the bottom of the suffering. Right? How do you excavate that? How do you dig that deep? You've heard it before when people try to have competitions about sort of who suffered more. And what I hear is like it's a very painful thing to say, because people are saying, but my suffering is real. And the other person's saying, my suffering is real. They're saying, but I can't see your suffering because of the enormity of my suffering. I think what I'll tell you is that there's a verse from the prophets that I can only quote in Hebrew, so I'll try my best to translate it. Come, let us know, let us pursue God as the sun rises in the morning. Forgive me if the translation isn't how it is, but I'm going to be blunt. I don't know you the way I want to know you, and you don't know me. And the pain and suffering that we've experienced and the tension within the community makes it so that just can't happen. Right, the same kind of people who call you a sellout, right? And the way that we structure our communities to sort of protect their insularity makes it very difficult for people to walk across the divide. So what I'll tell you is that our modest contribution to this is, I think, a very simple thing, which is we just wanted to know each other. Because I actually, my whole life, I have seen Black Jewish conversations around civil rights. I've seen it rise up. I've seen it fall apart. My wife was a civil rights lawyer, worked with, for a while with a lovely man named Clarence Jones, who was MLK's lawyer and sort of erstwhile speechwriter. He wrote a book about the days leading up to the speech, days leading up to the speech on the Mall. And he also writes in the book about how the coalition fell apart after MLK was assassinated, and the fact that the Jews and the blacks were actually quite intertwined within that group just stopped speaking to each other. And when the relationships went, so did everything else. So we're here for a modest purpose, but I'm hoping one that has more than modest aims. And so the request I have, I think, is I know that there's a lot that we have to talk about. I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, there's a lot that we have to uncover. But I'd also like to it's not that I'm trying to sweep what's wrong under the rug, but there's so much right about you as human beings. I need to experience it. I want to build a relationship with you as people, as spiritual people, as friends, because I think that's what's going to carry our work from the inevitable moments when it's going to be quite painful for our two communities to confront what has really happened.
I lived in this community since, I won't tell you, but I lived 155 Albany Avenue. That was before there was Weeksville houses and Albany houses. They were all tenements owned by Jewish people. They tore them down because they were so terribly kept up. And that's when they built the projects. And thanks goodness for decentralization in the school districts, we began to be part of the African Americans, the black folks during the Civil Rights Movement, became active in developing our community. Weeksville was not ever part of Crown Heights until they became famous. When they started digging it up, they dug everybody out, and they discovered some artifacts underground. And then the Historical Society said, whoa, who left these things here? James Weeks. He brought the property years ago. So they called it Weeksville. And I taught at the schools for 28 years, so I can give you a lot of history about Weeksville, but we don't have the time. So it's a lot of history regarding Weeksville in the black community. It was a staunch community for runaway slaves. They had on this church right here that we're sitting on, had an underground hole in the kitchen in the back. See, people don't want to say that, but I know that. I saw that little girl. There was a big hole in the middle of the kitchen back there. So this is an Underground Railroad station right here, Weeksville. So we were talking about politicians like the late, well, at that time it was Assemblyman Major Owens. We're talking about Sam Wright. We're talking about a lot of people. We're talking about Al Van, who just left us, who had the Black Teachers Association. We're talking about history, people who helped develop the community. And it seemed like after we became famous, then the Jewish community wanted Weeksville to be part of Crown Heights because we had something to offer. So we weren't really happy in the beginning. We were just coming along, getting along. And this is what happens. And we're still having that problem. The time machine maybe has changed with the years, but the activities and level of pulling it together is still rock bottom. It's still a rock bottom, but we have to try a little bit harder. You know, we have to use history to develop and become better and better and better. That's what we can ask for. We got to do that. We got to get better. You learn from your past, you bring it to your present, and you correct it if you can.
Oh, that was awesome, Sister Linda. No, she wanted to say something. Come on, sister.
I just wanted to respond. I think you passed on similar concept as Victoria. I was very moved by Victoria sharing about the discrepancy in the Crown Heights communities, about the economic disparity and the Jewish ownership of things, which in a way I didn't know about, but it made me cry, it made me vulnerable, and I don't know what I can do about it.
Say that again. You asked?
The fact that you even asked the question, that you care to want to do something about it, I think speaks volumes to the change, you know, as far as you looking at the person in the mirror and the change that we all need to have just acknowledgement that it's there. I didn't know until you shared your funny, sad story at the same time about the synagogue that I would go into, and the one that I created, because we don't know enough about your community. We don't know that there is a great divide within, much like there's a great divide with African Americans, Afro-Latina, right? Are you black? Are you Spanish, right? There's so many divisions within. I think even to know that we're divided within, that we even share that together would bring us together. Like, we're all crazy. We're all screwed up. We all need help. Like, that part.
That's the reconciliation.
Like, that we have that in common. Just even those things. I work in a high school that's predominantly black and brown young men, but it's in Williamsburg, which is this affluent artist community. Tesla's up the block. You have all these cafes and these boutique stores, and most of the students that come to the school, they don't live there. They can't afford to live there. They live in Brownsville. They live in East New York. They live in Bed-Stuy. They live in Canarsie. They come from the Bronx. And we always ask them. I'm part of the articulation team where I go to the different middle schools to recruit students to come to our school. Why don't the kids that live in Williamsburg, Greenpoint, why don't they want to come to our school? We're a CTE school. We offer the students state certification in automobile repair. We offer them Adobe Photoshop, digital photography, software engineering, all these programs right in the backyard. But why can't we get the kids that live there to come to our school? This is an ongoing question. And I think because they see it as the black school in the neighborhood. They see it as the school where you learn a trade, where you don't come there if you're smart. You come there because you're good with your hands. But cars are computers now. Right? We're using Canvas and easels, but we're doing computer-generated Adobe Photoshop. You have to have a level of intelligence to succeed. Not only are you getting a regular high school diploma with your core subjects, you're getting an advanced diploma, which allows you to start at a higher pay rate and a higher skill set when you do enter into the world of work, if you decide not to go to college or do both. And so we're not good enough, or we're deemed not good enough for the affluent kids that live in the community. And so whose responsibility is it to get the word out that we're good enough, right? That we're worthy. And speaking about partnership, if one parent would send their child to our school and tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell a friend, we'd be busting at the seams. We're a building that can hold up to 1,500 students, but we only have 347. And we're such a great, loving school. And I don't say that because I work there. I say it because it's true. That every student would feel good about coming there. That every student it would be a second home to them. And I try to share that as I go out into the middle schools, encourage students to come to our school. But if somebody who doesn't look like me would say it, it means something else. And so I think it is the responsibility of someone who doesn't look like me to be the ambassador, to be the bridge, to invite someone in so it becomes our school and not the black school in the middle of the wealth. Right. So thank you for even asking how you could help and wanting to help. And I think that's where it starts.
It's so much to unpack in this room, but history is where it begins. Her story is where it begins. His story is where it begins. My story is where it begins. And
when we begin to dig into history, begin to get some napkins and cry and weep and be uncomfortable, because history is not always pretty. History is very painful. Her story is painful, but yet there is a goodness in the story of the pain that we experience as people. Whatever you went through, whatever First Lady Vicky went through, all of us, there is a pain that's deep down inside of us that needs to be rooted up and out. But I commend again what is happening here. We have technology that is so different now. I sit at the table combing my granddaughter's hair and she's busy with the phone, tick-tocking and watching this stuff, and I'm looking like, this is driving me crazy. But this is their means of communication, so I've got to understand that. So how do I use that media to help her be somebody else rather than watching to do these different things? So she asked me recently, 11 years old, Pastor, I want to strengthen my communication and my relationship with God. 11 years old. My God, thank you, Jesus. Because I'm going to use that media so she can begin to use that media differently. And when she looked at some stuff that was gospel and whatever and Christian, it wasn't a black face she saw first. It was a young, light-skinned brother with soft hair. But he was comical, he was good, and he engaged her in media. And then she downloaded the app. So there's things that we can do, but we've got to get to the root of the pain and share the pain. Because until I know your pain, I know your pain, and until you know my pain, there's your story, her story, and the story that's never told.
That's right. Thank you so much for that. You know, I want to share something real quick. We could go on and with this. This is a continuing conversation that we have to do on a monthly basis, which I'm trying to be the ambassador of, especially in our black and brown communities and cross-section into the Jewish community. You know, I want to thank God for JCRC NY, and the reason for that is because in September I was privileged to go to Israel. And, you know, talking about seeing two sides of the coin. So, you know, I thought that every part of Israel was going to be filled with Hasidic Jews and everybody in black, and everybody's praying all day and talking about having a wrong perspective because you don't fully understand. Are y'all with me so far? And then I went to this place called Tel Aviv. And when I went to Tel Aviv, I'll share these two, A and B. One, Tel Aviv blew my mind because I thought I landed in a different country. I said there was no way I could be in Israel because Tel Aviv, from what Rabbi Scott did tell me, trying to preview my trip to Israel, he says, when you get to Tel Aviv, let me know what you think. That's all he said. When I went to Tel Aviv, I was like, hold up, what's happening there? I saw people on the beach, the bikinis. I saw people walking around. Went to a couple places. I'm in church now, so I can't let them know the pastor went there. But I went to several of us at night went to just trying to find a place to eat. A couple of the places told us it was obviously that people were in there eating, and they told us, no, we're closed. And I said, but you have people inside. And they said, no, we're closed. All right, no hard feelings. And then, you know, you walk around Tel Aviv, and what I saw was a mini New York, right? That's all I'm going to say about that. But what that did help me, now, going back to Jerusalem, there was something in the air in Jerusalem that I was trying to figure out every single time we were in Jerusalem, because we had to go to all these various spots, and I just couldn't figure it out. And you know what I learned from that trip? I learned life. You know, you could go into all of these different settings, and when you come in with your own bias without trying to learn, unless you're willing to amend it, then you will not learn. And so I had to amend my perspective on what I saw in Tel Aviv and realize Tel Aviv and Jerusalem is just two different aspects of the coin, and realized I had to appreciate each. But then I went to other places like Ramallah, and then I went to Sadat. And when I went to Sadat, these are the places which I would encourage you to go. I hope I'm not, what is that? Still, okay, great. And I decided one day while I was there, why don't you simply, and I hope everyone who's listening will watch this, why don't you just open up your mind and open up your heart to understand? And that's what I did. And it transformed me. It literally transformed me, because one night I started walking around the streets of Jerusalem. I think it was a Saturday evening when everyone was just willing to go to the marketplace and party. And I decided I just want to just walk around and see what was happening. And I started just seeing these different aspects of people and people walking the streets and different cultures. And I think that's what we're lacking. Even though we live in all of these intersections of culture, we don't take the time to listen to the cultures. We don't take the time to appreciate. We don't take the time to say, okay, while you're different, I am willing to get to know what's so different about you. And I think the hate crimes and bias incidents and the bullying and all of these things that are happening is because we're not taking the time to fully understand the differences of the cultures that are so close and yet so far. So close and yet so far. And we have to begin to do that, because I think by not taking the time to learn the cultural differences of each other, we're missing a lot. If I did not introduce myself to Rabbi Scott, I would have missed so much of one of the richest relationships of all time. If Rabbi Bob Kaplan did not introduce himself to me, I would have missed going to Israel. And we have to learn my wife would always say, learn how to connect the dots. And we have to learn how to connect the dots within our communities, within our religious settings, and talk to each other. Get to know what's so different about you. Get to know where's your Tel Aviv from your Jerusalem. And say, hey, you might be different, but I want to get to know you. And yes, these things happen in each of our communities. Yes, hate crimes within the Black communities might also is also on the rise, but we don't report it. So we don't know. It's on the rise in the Muslim community, but they don't report it. And so if one community just keeps reporting it, that's why it's lacking, that we don't cross-culturally understand each other. Does that make sense? And so we need more settings like this. We need to have more conversations, and not only leave it at the conversations. I was in a One Crown Heights meeting the other day, and we were talking about, after we have these conversations, what is the next steps that we do? What is the action steps? And the action steps is to meet. Let's meet in, I was a part also of, we are Brooklyn Fellowship Against the Hate, and we spoke about, let's meet in spaces that we all can feel safe, that we have to create safe havens for each other. While you speak, I want to feel safe, Mimi, without feeling as if I don't want to say this because you're going to get offended. I want to have we need to have more open, safe spaces to understand, Linda, that we might be sitting on 200 years or more of history, and we just don't understand. We don't understand how these relate. What I knew of the Jewish community is that in Canberra Heights, when I used to live in Canberra Heights, that was a hardcore relationship between the Jews, but at times it became chaotic. And you have to know the history of that. But yes, Pastor Monos, you're right. Jews and blacks have lived side by side with each other. But why are we not fostering those relationships within our own community? So we can't stay here all day, but we will come back and have more of these conversations. We have more coming up next month, God willing. And so I'm going to ask Rabbi Scott, who really was the one who said we need to have more talks of these, to really help us close this out. And we'll go around the room and get 2 minutes popcorn talk, and we close this out. So starting with Rabbi Scott. Let's go around.
I think history is a big burden to bear, It's hard to get away from your history, except as long as you realize that we're actually writing it as well. History doesn't end. So the question is, I think, not only what history we want to remember, but which history we want to write.
So I appreciate the conversation we had this afternoon. I was going to share some thoughts, but I was sent. But there's one thought that sticks out in my mind because I'm from Jamaica, and so this reality is not necessarily commonplace in Jamaica. As a matter of fact, our motto is "out of many, one people." So that's the framework in which we were cultured. And so coming to this context and having these conversations are so important. I believe it was Archbishop Desmond Tutu who said, one thing about history is that we don't learn from our history. And so as we continue this narrative, the question is, how do we rewrite the history? How do we see other groups who are going through pain and crisis, and we step in to support them? The Asians had their increase in Asian crime this year. We stepped in and we marched with them in Manhattan. And they said, let's come and march down with you in Brooklyn. That through the Partners Against Hate program, we said to our young people, do you know about the Muslim faith? Do you know about the Jewish faith? Do you know about the black? So we brought them into a Muslim context and a Jewish context, took to the Jewish museum to expose their minds. How do we rewrite or write the rest of our history with the generation that is now here, the Gen Zers, the Gen Alphas, and how do we demystify and not create the cycle that has been created with us? How do we stop that generational narrative and shift the narrative? Because at the end of the day, there's only one race, and that race is the human race. Woo. Thank you. Rabbi, I'd like to report a hate crime. I heard that there were kosher food in the AMA church. I came in and I didn't see anything. I only smelled food. So I'd like to report a hate crime. I don't know who to call or what to do, but I'd like to do that. Don't ever invite me again to an event where we have kosher food and I don't get anything to eat. I said I want to say a hate crime, so you need to fix that so we can reduce this. Right? But I think that, listen, let's not just speak in general terms. You know, I'm going to take responsibility for my community. I'm going to always speak out. I'm always going to be your ally. I'm always going to be your friend. I'm going to hold you accountable where you need to be accountable. You're going to hold me accountable where I need to be accountable. But at the end of the day, I want to say again, is that we are walking together. And so I'm going to walk with you as I expect you to walk with me. You have my commitment from my community and from me to be that person to you.
Thank you. I'm laughing because when Dave came back from Israel, all he kept talking about was the food. I mean, he talked about it so much that nothing I cooked after that measured up. He was like, where's the third course? Like, welcome back to reality. So I have to go to experience the food. But let me just say, as my grandmother would say, who's from the South, quite simply, if you want a friend, show yourself friendly. And I think a smile goes a long way. A good morning, a hello, all the pleasantries that we learned, as children that we've gotten away from. I think we need to get back to basics. Human dignity, human kindness, helping your son who's about to fall on the bus. Just things that I think we do instinctual that we've gotten away from. And so I'm grateful to you, husband, for having these conversations. Thank you to everyone who felt it important to be here. And just continue to support and love upon each other, and wishing everybody a happy, happy, happy holiday season.
Wow. We have to make the wrong right. I have to take my own ownership and responsibility and accountability to make the wrong right. So I'm going to remain mad. M-A-D. I'm going to make a difference wherever I go. So I'm asking you to be mad and make a difference wherever you go. Yes, a smile goes a long way. We're in a society that we don't want to hug somebody anymore because I don't know, do I hug or not hug? Hug them them anyway.
Right.
Because maybe the hug may be just what they need. But be cautious, because maybe holding may not be what they want. So read the body language, read the eyes. Look at my sister and my brother in the eye, because our eyes is the mirror of our soul. So take time to look at my eyes, and then look at me, and then we can see each other. I see you, you see me. I love you, and I hope you love me.
So, first of all, I want to say I feel blessed to be in this space today, and I just want to say how blessed I am by my Creator and our common Creator, to be in a space today where I can be part of an answer. And I can work on myself and my own personal responsibility to be part of that answer. And I want to be able to work on myself to be part of that responsibility, to work and understand the other that I'm interfacing with and how I'm going to get there, how I am going to get there, because I, Bob Kaplan, need to be part of that answer. And that's an important thing. And one thing that the rabbi said before is that and there's folks in our community, in the Jewish community, that he hasn't spoken to. Well, I don't know if you know that my ordination, my smicha, that's what we call ordination in Hebrew, happens to be from one of those right-wing yeshivas, and I lived that lifestyle for over 25 years of my life.
I'm sorry.
So I just letting you know, However,
I'll move.
However, there are folks out there, when we talk about giving them a hug, that don't want to be hugged. Yeah. And more than that, they spiritually cannot be hugged, because their faith tells them, I can't be hugged. But they want to be connected. And when you get down to the God in everyone, this is what God has blessed us with. When we get down to the God in everyone, if we recognize the dignity of the God in everyone, we can be an answer. And we can get beyond this permissibility of hate within our society and really just force it back underneath the rock. It's going to go underneath the rock. It's going to be there. We just got to keep our foot on that rock real hard.
Gosh, you've all said what I wanted to say and more, especially Lady Victoria talking about the smile. A lot of people notice I smile a lot. I smile and I connect. And when I walk through my community, and this is something that I would encourage everybody here to do, when your eyes connect with someone, especially someone of a different race, simply smile. That small smile of acknowledgement goes so far. And I'm going to especially encourage my Jewish brothers and sisters to please, when your eyes connect with someone outside of your race, just smile. Just smile. That small acknowledgement that acknowledges someone, I see you, you're present, and I accept you. A smile, 3 seconds of a face twitch, literally sends all of that in a very powerful being. And if I can leave anybody with anything today, is just smile when you connect. Just smile at your neighbor.
So why is it making me want to cry when you say it?
All right. Thank you all. Want to say something? Sure. Real quick.
Hopefully,
Give it a mic.
oh, thank you. Hopefully, next time we meet, I will have our Black Hawk spoken on. And the building, Joan Maynard, she gave me a copy for my classroom because this is a big book. It's a big, big box of books and materials talking about the African American journey before slavery, after and during. and she is called the Moapa. And hopefully, if I can get the addresses and the printout, which you can get a copy of it. It's a big kit, it has books, activities for ages 1 to 100. Thanks for coming on, thank you very much. A small,
A small detail that other people aren't aware of is that my wife and I brought with us a black friend who had told us she hadn't been in a church for 20 years. And she said that she loved your service and she's going to be coming back here.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. For all of our visitors from Romeo, Brooklyn today, thank you so much. Rabbi Bob Kaplan of JCRC New York, thank you so much. Thank you, Mimi, for being here. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Deacon Sonia. Thank you, Pastor Monrose. Thank you, Edward Hines, interim president of the God Squad. Thank you, Rabbi Scott Scroll. Give yourself a round of all Bethel people who's here. Cheryl and Ronald and Vanessa and Linda and Rena and Reverend Brogdon and Reverend Karen and Sister Faye and Sister Betty and everybody, my beautiful sister right here. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. Stay in tune for the next one that's coming up in January. We'll see you soon. Take care of somebody this holiday. God bless you. Take care now. Bye-bye. We'll see you soon.